welcome Ian Crilly to Small Business Heroes. Very keen to ask you a couple of questions in relation to your modus operandi. One of the greatest things that small business owners struggle with is their own motivation, their own ups and downs. It's very lonely in small business. Business advisors, it's very important that we lead by example, because if we do that, we have got some legitimate intellectual property to share with, mentor, guide, and to offer our clients in business as well. And I'm very keen to hear a bit more about your daily success habits that you've been implementing of late, because as I understand it, they are having a really positive impact, and I'm certainly noticing that in some of your progressive sort of commentary and demeanour, morale, persona, dare I say, as well. So I know a little bit about your, I've got a bit of insider knowledge here about some of these, but would you mind walking us through your daily success habits routine, if you will?
Sure, John. Well, I've been implementing this for some time, and it's part of my personal growth journey. As you know, I've spent a lot of time on the self-development track, and what's worked in the past hasn't worked currently or over the last probably 10 years. So I've thought about a better way of doing things, and basically it takes me 2.5 to 3 hours in the morning before I actually get to start work. But that's been a very significant time for me. I spend about 30 minutes in the morning just doing my exercise. I have a quick shower and breakfast. I spend some time in prayer and meditation, drive to the office, and then I'll spend some time, 30 minutes probably, sorting out my priorities for the day. Prior to that, I'll have written up my journal. I'm a great believer in, or at the moment anyway, it's working well for me. I keep a 5-minute journal. I go through gratitudes, what would make today great, and some daily affirmations. So I found from where I've come from, they've been very powerful in terms of motivating me and just reminding me that it's a journey that we're on in terms of business succession, business planning, and business success. And then at the end of the day, I go back and complete the 5-minute journal in terms of what 3 amazing things that happened and what did I learn. And over a period of time, the value in those last two dot points is that you've got a point of reflection and you see patterns appearing that you can then modify your behaviour and improve. But I found, frustratingly, the length of time in the morning. I've been concerned, why does it take me so long? But on the other hand, I'm probably going to have the best July I've had in 10 years. And it's a result of the work that we've done probably over the last 6 months, which is a culmination of the work that I've been doing with you in the Best Practice program and the work that I've been doing on myself in terms of personal development.
Yeah, and let's talk about your own journey in that regard. Thanks for the plug, but and I appreciate it, but let's focus on the actual evolution, because you had built, prior to being a sole practitioner, you'd built quite a successful business in the previous life.
Yes, well, I actually had 2 practices previously, and I sold one, moved location, and we ended up selling. I had a partner, and we sold that business, and the sale didn't go to plan, shall we say. It was quite disappointing for both myself and my partner in terms of what was promised and what was delivered. And so all of a sudden, I found myself in an unusual situation where I was sort of starting over again, and that was an interesting time because I challenged myself to do some different kind of work and continued specialty that I have in superannuation, whereas previously I'd been fairly focused on small business. But somewhere along the line, I sort of lost my way, and I think I came to you in about 2016, and I wasn't really in a very good headspace at that time. I went through the program. I'd lost a lot of confidence, John. I wasn't, if you remember, coming along to the actual monthly sessions. I was doing it via the web-based program that you had, and that was all I could actually do at that time. And I think after 6 months of prodding, I eventually got to the sessions, and it's been something that over that time, going through the processes of how to build a better business, how to build a better practice, and all the elements towards building yourself up have culminated into significant change. And it's taken me a long time probably to get there. But I think I said to you after our last workshop, I think I'm actually ready to start the program. Now, for people who maybe not have the similar struggles as me, they'll fast track themselves into it. But the lessons, the self-development material that we've got in the best practice program is really first class. And when you apply it, and I think it's taking a step back, it's actually making the decision to apply it. That's the important thing. So once you've done that, made that decision and then put it into practice, then amazing things can happen. And I just feel that I'm in the best headspace now than I have been in probably 10 years. And I'm really looking forward to, the rest of my success journey.
Yeah, well done, and thank you for everyone out there, our viewers and listeners. On behalf of them, I thank you for being just so open, and transparent. What do you think, looking back over the last 10 years, what were the moments in the business that messed with your head the most? Messed with your self-confidence the most, your motivation levels. What were those sorts of topics? Timelines?
To be brutally honest, I think I just lost confidence. I felt vulnerable to the point of, and it sounds silly to say this in some respects, but I felt I was getting older and that the technology was getting ahead of me. And I felt, in a sense, completely overwhelmed. And, the weight of legislation was changing so rapidly in, taxation and superannuation. And compounding that was the rapid change in the technology space through with the online bookkeeping software that's now available. It was just really as simple as getting overwhelmed. And looking back, if I'd just taken a deep breath and stepped back a minute and put some plans in place appropriately, then it may not have gone down that track. But it is what it is, and I'm just grateful that I got into the program and, have sort of spent that time with you working through how to build myself back up, regain my confidence, and, I've got really useful tools that help keep me sharp. and I'm not afraid to appoint people in my life now from an accountability perspective. I had that conversation with you about with my staff, how I've got one staff member who we make appointments with each other so that, things that I say are going to get done actually do get done. So it's just little things like that, just little steps. I won't say it's a perfect system. It's more of a journey, process, and some days are better than others. There's no question about that. But I think if you're committed to the longer term, committed to the process, and you set up your daily success habits, which is what I've done, then it's definitely working. And I've had very successful starts to the day, and what I'm now working on are areas where I see I can improve. Like the back end of the day and how I work on weekends or have fun on weekends. So I'm now starting to implement some of these strategies to improve my life experience in other areas.
Yeah, and many people that are viewing this and watching this may in fact not at this point truly appreciate the significance of your references to loss of confidence and motivation, because it sounded, and you summed it up so precisely, that I'm concerned that some of our viewers may in fact miss just how massive an issue that may have been for you, and also therefore legitimately is an issue for others, because when we're watching somebody else tell their story, sometimes we think our story must be far worse than theirs, and the moment you're willing to share is typically the moment that we've transcended from from a previous chapter.
To really explain that sense of overwhelm, because we adopt a professional persona in the way that we engage with people. So, very few people would really appreciate that I was going through probably the worst 10 years of my life. I was sharing with a close friend, and he said, I would never have guessed, and you just deal with it because you've really got no other choice. I suppose we're trained to deal with chaos in our daily lives, because the nature of our work is you just don't know when a client's going to die. You don't know when a business deal is going to come up, or the opportunity to buy a new property arises. Things just happen, and you have to make room to deal with those things. So in the course of what was going on, it's just sort of been crisis management, and I just sort of had to do something about it. And I mean, I'd been seeing these emails from best practice come through, and it just took me probably 6 months before I finally went, oh, maybe there's something in this. And then, even while I started going through the process, intellectually, everything made sense, but I just couldn't actually get myself to the point of implementation. And I didn't understand why until I started actually drilling down on some of the personal development stuff that's in the program, doing some own reading, and putting into practice the stuff that you're actually telling us to do. And I think that's made the turnaround. You could say I'm a slow starter, but I came from a very far back position emotionally, I think, and just in my headspace where I was at. And, I couldn't have done this 6 months ago, have this conversation with you. It would have been just too difficult for me. But I've really worked on myself, and, anybody who's even remotely overwhelmed with the amount of work that's in there, I just want to say just keep working on yourself. That's the most important thing. We did that session last month on belief, and it might seem corny, but it is true. The things that we believe impact our subconscious, and ultimately the decisions that we make. And I've got very strong empirical evidence in my own life and in my own results that are coming through to say that it works. And yeah, I just want to say to John, I'm just grateful that I'm in the program, and I appreciate the quality of the learning that we have, that you make available to us.
What I've heard from you that I think is quite important for small business owners, and also particularly accountants, bookkeepers, business advisors to learn, is that you are accidentally discovering that you're becoming quite an effective leader of people by just getting not just your personal, but your professional daily success habits into play and into check, and learning to honour those, during different sets of priorities during the day. And we mentioned this offline recently.
The words, walk the talk actually just leapt out at me, and that's something that, a lot of people say, but it's actually quite difficult to do. And unless you put accountability checks in there, as the leader of your business, it's quite easy, to tell people what they should be doing whilst you're not actually doing that yourself. And that is definitely the case with me. I know what needs to be done, but I wasn't always doing that because I didn't put a framework in place that would help keep me accountable. And it was just too easy to, pick up the next crisis job and then get that done or get enough done and get on to the next one without really putting a plan in place to make sure that those things don't happen again. That has made the difference. The other thing is authenticity. That's what I've learned. I think we all like to think that we're authentic. But if the truth be known, I think quite often there's a veneer there that we put up that we want people to see. And that's, to a certain extent, that's true with us all. But what I've learned is that I feel that I'm a lot more authentic now than what I have been in the past. And I'm more comfortable about being that. And that's why I'm able to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, well said. And I think that it's as much about being in touch with yourself and being honest with yourself about how you're actually feeling on any given day, and recognizing that your motivation is not self-enduring. It's not an organically growing matter that unconsciously perpetuates itself for you on your behalf. It's something you've got to create. And so therefore, it's the disciplines of your daily success habits, isn't it, that in fact yield results, which then regurgitate confidence and regrow those healthy mindset organisms around seeing is believing that you deserve to be successful because you're doing the things that will lead to that.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, in a humorous way, you develop a sense of muscle memory about this whole process. You find yourself just doing that process because you've done it for the last 6 months or whatever, and it doesn't feel right not to do it, but you're doing it before you realise you're consciously doing it, if that makes sense. And so I think, for me, we're seeing the results just in the practice about that, and I've really only just scratched the surface, in terms of where we go from here. Certainly not getting ahead of myself, but in terms of accelerating the process into other areas of what we do during the day, and setting ourselves up for the future. This process is going to work really well.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing that it's so easy to suddenly write off the journey as, oh boy, if I only just understood how to manage my confidence levels, it might have been different. But the reality is, why we've created this new chapter inside the Business Advisory Show called Small Business Heroes is because it's in fact this very journey that makes you valuable to a small business owner.
Yeah, I think so. You're definitely a better advisor. I think if you have dealt with the challenges of your own practice and you've experienced some personal challenges as well, then you're in a far better position to help people. You lend a sense of empathy about it, and you also can share with your clients some of your own experience or struggles, should that be appropriate, because that sometimes happens. I found as an accountant, you do tend to get very close to your clients. You tend to know them more intimately sometimes than even those closest around them, because of the nature of the things that you discuss, be it estate planning, succession planning, their superannuation, just the day-to-day running of their business. You know their habits and their good points and bad points, and so having a sense of structure behind the processes that you have, and even the simple things like getting the right people on the right seats and the bus going in the right direction, enables you to share with the client, well, if you do these things, it takes time, but commit to a process, and you get results for your clients as well. And it also leads to opportunities for moving into the advice space.
Yeah. Well done, Ian. If you had 10 years over, if there was one thing you would do differently, which I personally wouldn't necessarily recommend, because I think this journey you're on is in fact the gold in your own backyard to become an amazing business advisor for small business owners. But if you could do one thing differently with the benefit of hindsight, what would you do?
Probably start the best practice program 10 years earlier.
All right. Well, I didn't say that, viewers and listeners out there. So that came directly from me. And so I do apologise for how that's worked out. But Ian, we thank you. Your honesty and your transparency and your absolute authenticity shines through. And for business owners, and most importantly for budding business advisors out there with their own accounting or bookkeeping firm, this is the journey, isn't it? Through the wave of the ups and downs of self-confidence, self-esteem, self-belief, and then business modelling and success habits.
Yeah. It is, yeah.
Well done. Thank you very much, Ian.
Okay, talk to you later, John.
Indeed.